that, and because when I'm playing live through a PA, you know, those bass notes can really kind of run away with you a little bit. So having that kind of ability to kind of stop.
So how are you damping it?
So yeah, just bring your thumb back down.
Oh, you put your thumb back down and not
No, it's like the equivalent of, you know, on a piano having the sustain pedal and being able to kind of control things like that. But it's quite difficult, right? I kind of like found that quite hard at first, kind of because you're adding in a whole other extra motion, which you would usually use to pick the string again. So I ended up kind of like, when I first started, just like doubling up on all my bass notes because I accidentally kind of kept on playing them again. Good for the right hand. It's nice to kind of like work in exercises to try and build that up, that level of control, because I mean the guitar's capable of so much of that, right? And it's often, I think, underexplored. So it's nice to kind of think, okay, well, let's go back to basics and just do a few arpeggios and see if I can get absolutely everything out of what is, in essence, kind of something quite simple. So going back to the idea of the arpeggio, obviously you can kind of use the dynamic training to try and bring up certain melodies within the arpeggio, but then also angle of attack, to going now into tone, and like, you know, obviously there's the differences between dolce up here and ponticello down here and everything in between. Obviously there's a big difference between being really 45 degrees to the string, which is probably where you get the most contact with nail and flesh on string to get that really round, full body sound. And as you kind of like move to become more 90, you can hear the difference, right? So if you can kind of like compare, and you can work on some, it's almost like you're taking like a phaser and just kind of like moving around. So you team that up. You can get an awful lot out of the guitar, and kind of like really like messing around with that kind of stuff. And obviously that was another thing that Clive was on at me quite a lot, you know, because he is, you know, kind of, you know, in the deep, right, and he takes that to the extreme. I remember playing at the North American Guitar, and he kind of was doing, and people were, he managed to get such a variety of tone, and people were looking at each other going, what the hell was going on?
He's only ever played one guitar as long as I've known.
What, with Clive? Yeah, that with the bound. Yeah.
That Armstrong that you had, that was his Armstrong that you played at Teaneck there.
The baritone.
The baritone.
Yeah.
That's his as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to experiment with that kind of thing, and I try and build in exercises around my pieces to.
Do you do an arpeggio exercise for stopping as well?
For like stopping notes particularly. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. Not so much arpeggios as it is. I tend to try and build that along kind of rhythmic stuff. For example, obviously Dragonflies, Swans and Bumblebees, also, you know, blues. Anything with a really solid kind of pulse is nice, because the difficult thing about bringing your thumb back on to stop is kind of knowing when to do that, and sometimes it's easy to kind of time it with a beat. You see, like timing it with that kind of thing, instead of doing it really quickly, but that was how I would kind of start approaching it. Is kind of trying something really simple with a solid groove, and then try and stop the bass notes in some kind of rhythm. So with the Dragonflies, Swans and Bumblebees one, that one, I'm kind of bringing my thumb down just before I'm playing the next group of notes. So even that takes a little bit of doing, and that one again, really, really quick, so between hitting that first group and then the next. So.
And would that be conveyed in your notation if I bought you a book?
Certainly would be. Utmost details.
That's a deal breaker. It's not.
Yeah, so basically pay attention to the rests. It's it's the thing, like people often default to tab when they're reading, right? And it doesn't have all the information.
Yeah.
So like rests, been quite deliberate where I put rests.
Yeah.
So there is nothing, because if you just did that, it just starts sounding messy, right? All those notes going to go all over the place. So it's kind of quite important to know when to stop this stuff, I think. So yeah, I think it's quite nice to build in some of those kind of exercises into playing, something I quite enjoy taking people through, like my own students and things, because I think guitarists are guilty of playing things that are too difficult for them. Kind of fairly, I mean, I've been guilty of it all the time, and I tend to try and kind of keep on running upwards without really nailing some of the basic stuff, right?
I never play anything, would I?
Yeah. And like something about kind of, can you play an arpeggio? Like really, can you play it? Like, can you really nail it when you're kind of like completely isolated and exposed? And can you play it in every single possible way?
I know the answers to all these questions.
So building up from that, there's a big difference on your right hand between. I was speaking to Dan last night about kind of free stroke versus rest stroke. Voyando versus tirando, right? And in the classical world, that was kind of taught on day one. Kind of rest stroke thing. But it's interesting in steel string. It seems to very rarely happen.
They talk about it a lot in flat picking.
Say again?
They use it a lot in flat picking.
In flat picking, yeah. Yeah, I mean that could be really helpful. And in fact, that's something that I'm using when I'm using my nail as a pick. Using the kind of that kind of rest stroke vibe of trying to dig in and then resting on certain strings can be really helpful. But
So when you say that, I'm sorry, when you're playing that, strumming that chord, are you killing the string before when you're running down the strings or something like that?
you're kind of like you're dragging the nail down.
Ah, yeah, right. Okay.
And then when you get the one where your melody stops on, say, the second string, you use the first string to anchor onto. So you can really dig in onto that. That's what I was saying about bringing out the melody, right? So you can really lay into that last note. And the very last note, it bounces and pops up. But yeah, so rest stroke can be nice to kind of like shine a spotlight on certain notes, right? Because you can get a lot more volume and depth and roundness out of a rest stroke run. If I did that with free stroke, that's all I'm going to get. That's about as loud as I can get. But then rest stroke, much rounder and much louder. So if you have a certain thing that you want to kind of really shine a spotlight on, like little moments like that, maybe just one note is all it takes just to kind of really bring an interest. So I have that little bit in Dragonflies. How is it going? So suddenly just a little kind of like explosion of volume and like really nice round sound, which I wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So yeah, rest stroke kind of ideas are quite nice to kind of mess around with if you're on the old steel string. But again, I mean, I use the old ping pong ball thing, right? And I don't think I'd be able to play quite as aggressively. Well, I definitely wouldn't be able to play quite as aggressively on steel string without the help of something going on, because otherwise my nails would be shredded after about 10 minutes. Because you can really dig into your heart's content. I quite like that. Get a lot of volume out of it. So yeah, I mean that's and then other things like I don't know if anyone's dabbled in the world of tremolo kind of techniques, but they're quite a nice one to work on kind of right hand control, because it's a pretty beastly technique, a really lovely one to get good at, and it's quite nice to kind of, you can do the classical thing of having the melody kind of constantly painted with it, so you have the kind of etc. And that's quite nice, but then it's also quite nice. But then it's also quite nice to sort
Surprised to hear it not required us alarm.
yeah, right. That's the deal. I prefer that one. Do you know that one?
No?
It's by Barrios. It's called Una limosna por el amor de Dios, which is yeah, rolls off the tongue. But Barrios is great though. He's got some really great. Do you know Barrios? He's a South American composer. But he's got some beautiful music. And that one, I mean, just then it goes into the major at the end and has this amazing. That's just beautiful, isn't it? Oh, yes. You've also got one called La Catedral where it's got these beautiful high melodies like. That's it. That kind of thing, because the barriers is great for that. But tremolo, yeah, so I was saying like, it can be quite nice to kind of, paint it in that way, but it's also quite nice to kind of shove it in to kind of decorate melody. So I have a tune called The Night Watchman where I'm going to have this. So that's the kind of melody played normally. But then if you wanted to kind of use tremolo to kind of paint it a little bit, you're going to.
So I'm going to keep it on because I'm making Gordon.
No, of course, that's fine. So you can use it just to burst in. Is that Adrian, is it? So
Where's he?
yeah, Adrian's just arrived. So you can use it just to kind of put bursts of decorative elements into it, and like in kind of the folk world, you have that kind of thing. All of that kind of stuff is great to kind of like work on, and when you're going to work on tremolo, it's quite nice to just look at the rhythm of it, because it needs to sound like a machine gun, really. So I spent kind of quite a number of hours just going, driving myself slowly insane. But what's good about that is you can, because there's a temptation in tremolo to have the gallop, where you have this kind of, it's like diddler, 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 that kind of thing, where you're kind of getting that kind of evenness. You're going to get that metronomic kind of thing, and in order to kind of really do that, you then kind of need to get into the grips of what each finger's doing, rather than thinking of it as like just one blur. So then you start accenting certain fingers within it. So you go, then, just slowly driving yourself insane. But by doing that, as you build up the speed, should get to the point where it's kind of fairly metronomic, and even at the kind of the faster paces. And if you kind of skip that kind of step of like really getting to grips with it, you get the dreaded gallop. And you don't really want that. Hi, Adrian. To melodies, if you try it. So that's a little bit about the writing.
You've got the guitar, Gary. Are you going to try?
Is that ring finger first, middle
Yeah,
finger,
so in the
index?
classical world, you have ring, middle, index.
PIMA, isn't it?
P-A-M-I, P-A-M-I, P-A-M-I. And then you have the flamenco one where they add another finger in, where they have P-I-A-M-I. And they kind of double up on the index finger. Oh man. And the thing is, like, once you've learnt it one way, it's like almost impossible to learn it the other way. You get so ingrained into it. But yeah, the flamenco way is like, crazy stuff. Like Paco de Lucia, just on another level of tremolo playing. Like he does, Asturias, right?
Yeah.
He was somehow manages to, in the that bit, he manages, instead of just doing the two notes, which is enough for anyone, he adds in the full tremolo pattern,
Oh, goodness.
like that, but like that speed.
Yeah.
Just kind of crazy.
Wow.
Ridiculous. So anyway, yes, right hand is quite important, often underlooks, and I think having the freedom, because because of the classical thing, I was always beaten terribly if I never anchored anything or did this or anything like that. So when I first started kind of migrating from the proper classical pose slowly to this, and then this, and then kind of this, and just it was interesting. I found it quite difficult, but like even when I was playing blues for the first time, that was weird for me because I couldn't really get it. I couldn't get it right because I was like this. It was like it's all very twee, and then, but then as the kind of wrist kind of was able to kind of get lower, you can kind of just snap at the strings a bit more. But I've never been able to actually get my wrist to touch the wood of the guitar. It always just hovers, because as soon as it touches, it's like, ooh, it's about to. Yeah, exactly. So I've always kind of never ever ended up anchoring anything when I'm playing.
Do you palm down?
Well, if I'm palming bass notes, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you can palm down and not use a finger pick, a thumb pick. You could.
That's right.
But you find that is possible. Yeah.
It is possible. Yeah, sure. Obviously, with a thumb pick,
you
get more attack.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're pointing this way, so you can't really get much nail at all when you're playing.
So it's just flesh.
It's a flesh sound, but it can be really, it can be quite nice for that. Yeah. I like kind of like putting those moments in occasionally. So instead of playing like one note, instead of playing like one note, instead of playing a whole passage with palm muting, which is often the way I try to kind of sometimes add in just a palm muted note. So in this kind of blindsided, just to get that sound. So just get that feel. And when it's through a PA, it's really. Otherwise, it just has that sound, and I wanted that sound. A bit more rhythmic, a bit more percussive.
Did that have the impact on your nose?
That's it, that's basically the touch to the nose. Yeah. So yeah, that's the right hand. So, composition then, shall I talk a little bit about that? Yeah? So,
Are you alright, Adrian?
I kind of have certain themes, and then I kind of just develop them in certain ways and arrange them differently on the guitar. So it's the same thing, but you know, it's never getting boring because you're always kind of just varying certain things. So that first, well, there's the very first thing, and then you have this one, like that, which comes in, and the first time you hear it, it's painted with a quite simple accompaniment, quite delicate. And then the second time you hear it, it's been painted with much bigger chords. So it's still familiar, but all of a sudden everything's there's more going on, so it's not repetitive. And then just subtle changes in the way you're voicing chords. Like on the very first melody note, there's that, or there's that, and just that ever so slight change can make all the difference in the world. And then all of a sudden the melody's gone down the octave and then been painted with much darker harmonies. So instead of the kind of still quite kind of twee and happy, suddenly gone a bit dark down here. And then quoting that kind of repeating bass line that came in here at the very beginning. So there's a sense of familiarity.
Interested in, do you actually, Clive Carroll famously gets the melody in his head and notates it and then figures out how he's going to play it. I presume your approach is different, or do you compose on the instrument itself, or how does it work?
It's a bit of both.
Right.
Kind of quite often the ideas will come to me kind of from noodling around and having ideas in my head that I then want to experiment with on the guitar. This is a good example of one where I needed to notate things first before in certain areas in order to kind of understand what the hell was going on. Sure. So having this interacting with and then the bass notes, I just needed to visualize it on the page. So I wrote it all out, and then that was the only way I could understand, particularly from a rhythmic point of view, how to get them all working together. Because there's quite a lot going on there, like how they kind of interact with one another. That was beyond my ability of just sitting down and kind of bashing it out, if you know what I mean. It was kind of much better to kind of just notate it all and see how it goes. But yeah, it's a mixture. But I enter kind of a slightly self-destructive, obsessive spiral when I kind of compose sometimes, and it's kind of I'll record tiny little bits and listen to them over and over and over again until I know exactly where things need to go or exactly where the harmony needs to go. So I'll be like walking around the supermarket with my headphones in, like humming this same tune over and over again, going, what the hell? And Claire, my fiance, is just like, driving her absolutely nuts when I'm just kind of like constantly just going. That for about an hour. She did say yes in the end, which is, I don't know why, but. So yes, I kind of, it's a mixture. Sometimes I'll have ideas which are very vivid in my head,
Yeah.
and then I'll use that as the starting point. Sometimes a piece of music will come to me really quickly, which is always a relief. Like The Night Watchman, I wrote in about half an hour, kind of beginning to end, and it was done. I was like, yes, it's good business. And then other ones, take years.
When you're doing that quite complicated mixture of things, you're mostly working on about 6 things at a time.
Yeah.
Does the stopping of the frog part, does that come naturally?
No,
you
need to practice it.
That still has to be worked within that particular sort of equation.
That's right, and like certain because I know what I need it to sound like, and I can't play it.
So it's another factor within that particular.
Yeah, indeed.
That composition.
And I think that's sometimes I kind of end up making work for myself quite difficult because I have ideas in my head that I literally can't play, so I kind of need to kind of really sit down and actually practice them. I think that's a good thing. The worst thing for me is getting stuck in a rut and like going back to your safety net all the time. It's like, I know that this pattern works here, or like it's the dreaded kind of composing as a guitarist thing, isn't it? It's like, I've got a nice chord, I'll put a pattern on it. There we go.
Comfort really works.
Comfort zone. Yeah.
It never sounds like you're in a rut.
Yeah, exactly. You just put a nice sounding chord with a nice sounding fingerstyle pattern on it, and you think, hey, jobs are good. And I did that a lot. But then you kind of think, is that really what composing is? I mean, is it actually that? I think it's quite nice to think a little bit broader about the music. Music first, then guitar second can be quite a nice way of thinking about it. Yeah. And the same thing with Dragon's Back, right? I mean, I had the melody. Quite a haunting thing that came first, and I was like, well, what imagery am I trying to evoke here? In the very beginning, and that was the kind of like quite film music kind of scenic thing that I was trying to go for, with the kind of this mountain range looming in the background, right? So that kind of the idea of these kind of almost this misty, kind of mysterious thing, they kind of appearing, and I thought, well, harmonics are the only way that I'm going to kind of get that image. So then painting those harmonics over the melody. That was the way that those kind of mountains were appearing to me in my head. And then that melody, again, what the idea was I was saying about making the most of what you already have. That melody then gets developed a lot. And then when it comes in again, it's big chords. And then like massive sounding things just coming from the beginning, and leaving behind some of the rhythm stuff, because again that was another classic kind of multi-part thing. So there's a drone happening here on the third string with the offbeat melody, and then the bass again stopping. Much more effective and kind of like foreboding sounding thing if you can stop the bass notes, and then again that's those moments where the pulse gets completely removed just to make way for one epic chord. So you get that kind of, you have that kind of foot tapping, and then suddenly the chord kind of comes back in again. Kind of messing around with the idea of kind of moving away from pulse, but then bringing it back in to make way for these kind of big
melody
moments.
Is kind of still down out of the head, is it? I mean, that basic melody.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to go around.
Sense as we go.
So here you go. Bless him. He did a lovely job of that animation and thing, didn't he? Yeah. That's great. So, and again, going back to the right hand idea of like making sure everything was sat in the right place. Clive drilled me pretty hard on this, making sure that the drone wasn't the focus, especially when the bass comes in. So the melody is really punching up, and the drone becomes a real kind of background image. And then when this bit comes in, when the melody comes in, making sure it comes down, and then up again. Down again. To make way for melody. So that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of thinking about all the time, but it just takes time, doesn't it? That's the thing. And so it's one of those things. I've recorded the album. I just want to record it again now. I feel like I'm only now being able to play these pieces properly. It's funny how that goes, isn't it?
I'll buy it again anyway.
Yeah. Oh, nice one, Charles. Cheers. So yeah, and then does anyone have any questions about that kind of stuff? Or?
Just gonna go check
I've
my
got a couple of slightly unrelated questions.
Yeah, go.
One is kind of quality control, self-imposed quality control, like when you write stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of systems or checks and processes for going, that was great, that's rubbish, other than your own instinct?
From a point of view about composition specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There are some things where they will just fall by the wayside because again there's that listening thing that I do a lot of. I'll record everything that I'm writing and listen to it a lot to make sure that it's kind of doing the right thing. And sometimes I'll record something and listen to it and I think just not doing what I want it to do right now. I mean, maybe it will do in the future and I'll revisit it perhaps, but I don't like kind of flogging a dead horse. Sometimes there's kind of these ideas where you think, oh, this is really cool at the time, and then you wake up the following morning, you listen back to it and it's like, actually no, that's crap. But I've been doing it so long. I mean, I've been writing music and recording music since I was about kind of 14. As soon as I started writing, I was recording it and listening to it and then shoving CDs in front of my family's faces. And when I first started writing, I was like well against any sort of repetition. So I ended up writing kind of through songs with literally no repetition at all, just because that's what I was doing. When I listen to it back and I think, this isn't very good at all. This is weird. This is a little bit avant-garde. You know, I'm only 15, and like no one's gonna be buying this stuff. So it was only when I started really listening to myself, and I'd done a lot of the kind of percussive style things, and played a lot with that, and all the tapping and everything like that. And then I was listening back, and I was just thinking, for me, it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So then I just started composing much more from a musical point of view first, rather than guitar first, because that's how I first started writing.
Yeah.
Was I saw someone do something, I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll give that a go. And like, you know, slapping harmonics all over the place and like all that kind of stuff. And it was great to kind of get those techniques under my belt, but not how I ended up kind of settling on how to kind of write music, I suppose.
Yeah.
So when you're writing a tune in your head or on paper, whatever, and then figuring it out on the guitar, have you got a tuning in mind, or
So
do you try different tunings and this would work in that?
Yeah, so the tuning, more recently in the last couple of years, I've kind of worked not from a tuning first.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes people were saying, I'm going to do a tune in DAG, or I'm going to tune an open D. I kind of find a tuning from what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So just literally experimenting. So for example, well actually that's probably quite a good example actually. So I have a tune where it's just the B down to A, because I had this tune called Fluffball, right, which is over my, after my dog. And I wanted, I had this kind of, this idea in A, and that was where it came from first, this dog running around and me going, kind of like trying to kind of capture that essence. And then I wanted to be able to kind of like have the melody very easily accessible to me, and having the open A just suddenly made everything a lot easier for me, so I could add the drone in. Available to me, so that's where that kind of came from. And then similarly, the waltz, Lighthouse that I played last night, I had this idea of this rhythm that I wanted to be able to paint really easily on the kind of bass, and then make way for some treble melodies. So I was thinking, well, how can I get a satisfactory accompaniment without any kind of fretwork? So hence. where that tuning came from. I just wanted to kind of find the appropriate accompaniment first, and then all the melodies were available to me in standard tuning. So like half of it's changed and half of it remains the same. So that's kind of where that kind of idea kind of came from. So I'm trying to think of alternate tunings to serve a purpose in the music. So that's kind of what I've been doing recently anyway. But it has also been fun. I know some people like using alternate tunings just because suddenly all of your preconceptions of what you know, everything, all your comfort zone suddenly get thrown out the window and you have to kind of start from scratch. And that can be quite liberating as well. I know, Chris Woods, he does that a lot. It's like literally every single tune is in a different tuning, which is kind of a bit of a nightmare. But it's he says it just helps him, really kind of get to grips with new, not kind of like falling into the same patterns over and over and over again. So that's the kind of thing. Yeah. So, is there anything else that people want to know about from myself?
Is there a particular reason why you picked that type of guitar for doing your instrumental work?
This type of guitar, yeah. So it's kind of, this was the first kind of luthier built guitar that I had by Roger up at Filed, and he sent me an email saying, "Looks like you might need a guitar." I was like, "All right, yeah." So he discovered that I kind of was classically trained and was playing steel strings which were anything but, and I never really felt comfortable on them. So he thought, we could make a hybrid somewhere in between, and it suits me down to the ground. So I like having the slightly wider neck, slightly wider string spacing, just more room to work with, and then the 12 fret join as well. I'm really comfortable with that, and I think again that just has come from the fact that I've just grown up with classical playing. I just like the feel of a 12 fret neck. So that's kind of where this came from. It's it's a halfway house. It's not as wide as a classical neck, but it's not as narrow as a standard steel string neck, and that's where I found myself feeling quite comfortable actually. And the other one that I have by him, the nylon string, is kind of like the sister of this, so it kind of feels very similar when I'm swapping between them. So I do like the differences between steel and nylon. Just a little bit more of a pain in the arse when you're flying to a gig or something. You've got two guitars rather than just one. One's difficult enough. Yeah.
How much is your notation book?
Notation book is £20, Charles.
Well, very reasonable.
Do you think so?
I'll take 3.
Yeah. Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
What adaptations do you have to make to your right hand when you, or either hand, between the steel and nylon?
I try and make very little adaptation actually. It's more to do with kind of how the different strings react and tone and things like that, and the fact that steels sustain more and nylon strings don't, and nylons have a much warmer tone. So it tends to be a tonal thing that I try and tweak. But from an actual playing point of view, nothing dramatically is changing in my technique, really.
Yeah, I mean, because it looks like you're playing basically classical technique on the steel string.
Well, that's exactly right. That's where I'm kind of, still very much that, really.
Yeah.
And there's certain techniques that involve the high wrist, which I can really like. Do you know Rodrigo's Concerto de Aranjuez, right? There's that cadenza in the second movement, which has got this kind of this technique, which is one of these kind of amazing like half arpeggios, and I really liked that. And that was, there's no way you can do that with a kind of a flat wrist.
Yeah.
You just can't. You don't have the room to manoeuvre. So but I like it on steel string. I think it sounds really nice. So I use it in terms of like almost more rhythmic, I suppose. So you have these kind of ideas where you have. Up kind of mostly, and as I'm trying to get really growly with it, my wrist is kind of pretty high most of the time.
Can you break down what's going on there with your right hand?
Oh, and this, yeah. So I call it the old pick and drag, right? Because you kind of like you're picking upwards with a very quick arpeggio with thumb, index, middle, ring, for example, and then dragging back with your ring finger with a rest stroke kind of idea, like that. Which is quite nice. Then if you double up on the thumb, you can get really nice melodic kind of. So you can kind of carry it on and on. And it's, the reason it's called, it sounds a little bit like a, when you know, when you do the harps do those massive, great big runs, it has that kind of similar effect. So I do things like that where it's just little bursts of it. Which is quite a nice way of, it's a textural thing really, and I quite like that. On the, but yeah, the first time I came across it was in that kind of Rodrigo concerto. I thought, well, that's a really nice thing. I haven't really seen it being used anywhere else. It's quite nice to try it in a different context, right? Instead of these wacky, great big huge ones, it's quite nice to do little ones because they got a nice delicacy to them, I think. Yeah, try it out. It's fun.
You've got a video online breaking down just that technique.
I do, yeah. There's a tuition video called The Old Pick and Drag. So yeah. Again, that lots of them are helped by the idea of kind of listening to just the rhythm of it. That's what you want to get, that kind of really kind of like smooth sound with it. It's very easy to like miss a string, or like some of them will be really weak compared to others, so hearing just the rhythm of it can be quite helpful. Yeah, someone said artificial harmonics, right? Have we finished with that? If you were cool, I mean, we could finish up now if everyone's kind of information overloaded. But are we good?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, all right, cool. So artificial harmonics, there's a couple of ways of doing them. There's the thumb and finger, or the finger and finger way. Most people seem to do this on steel string, but this way is also very good because that frees up your thumb for doing melody. But similarly, you might want to do it this way around to do stuff like harp arpeggios, right? So you have the artificial harmonic followed by a normally played note in a kind of repeating pattern. It's a really nice technique, and it's good to try it with just really simple. If you've never tried it before, try it with like just simple open position chords and get used to the idea of tracing shapes. So if you visualize an E major chord shape up here, you can easily then find where the 12th fret always kind of bounces up. So you have, like, for example, 12, 14, 14, 13, 12, 12. And once you kind of find those harmonics, then you can try very slowly playing a harmonic and then plucking a normal note, a ring finger, by skipping a string. So you go 6th string, 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 3rd, 1st. And you go. Changing chords. And you can try on 7. And really mental is on 5th. That's quite a nice way of kind of trying out the idea of kind of start simple with artificial harmonics first, then add in the idea of kind of the harp harmonic thing. And then if you're doing the other way around, in index finger and ring finger, for example, that allows you to play a bass note at the same time, and that's quite nice. So that in my piece Blindsided, I had this bit where the thumb's working quite hard at the same time as doing those harmonics.
So other than releasing your thumb, is there any advantage of doing thumb and finger as opposed to index finger and...
Any differences between? Well, they sound a bit different, I think. I think with thumb and index, you can get a really strong sound, whereas this is a bit weaker, I suppose.
Right.
There's also a big difference as well between how much space you leave between the where you're pointing the harmonic and where you're plucking it. So the bigger the gap, the more full-bodied, and as you close the gap, it becomes a bit more brittle, depending on what you want. You know.
If I might do it, I always play the guitar.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite nice to do a bit of both, because they kind of open up different possibilities, I guess. And with Blindsided, it's the idea of kind of playing the harmonic at the same time as the thumb plays a bass note, which I was trying to get. You can get some really funky ones up here. So yeah, kind
Are you picking with your ring finger for those?
yeah, so I'm picking with ring finger, and the index finger is pointing at the harmonic.
It does. It does. Yeah. Well, I mean,
What was that?
So did that Cascaro have any influence on you?
Oh, big time, big time. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when I first heard that, I was like, yes, there we go. Yeah. But that's really good. I mean, I love using that as a tutorial piece because it kind of ticks all the harmonic boxes, right? You have the intro, and then nice natural harmonics, and then the ending with. Sorry?
The bent one.
Yeah, yeah.
And that blew people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. And then the slaps at the end. Yeah, it's a great tune, and it's just one that you play a student and they're just like, yeah, let's learn that one. So yeah, Thomas was a big influence on me. I mean, I got tutored by him kind of back at the IGF days.
Oh yeah.
He kind of, yeah, yeah, that's it, yeah. So yeah, I definitely picked up a lot from him, for sure. So yeah, artificial harmonics, always good fun. And the sky's the limit with them really, but it's just, I find it really helpful to have a solid unit of a right hand that can move around really reliably with it. So I know that this shape is the shape that will always bounce around, and I will kind of always have that consistency. So it's rock solid, and the only thing that's moving is my finger really. And the same for this one, I know exactly that shape is the shape that I will always
behind
use.
that finger is really, so you just
Yeah.
point the finger and then you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because some people, when they first start bending the finger and like plucking and bending, and you're just making your life really hard for yourself. You're kind of it's like moving goalposts all the time.
Yeah.
So if you have like a solid unit that you can just bounce around, then you have a better chance of building a bit of consistency with it. But yeah, it's again time, right? Isn't it? It's difficult to find the time. Well, I hope that kind of was interesting. Thanks very much. Nice one.
Thanks to Owen.